Hi everyone. So you're going to be starting on one of your first projects for English 3. And this is where you're going to be exploring the American literary periods and genres. This is a pretty simple assignment. All you have to do is pay a little bit of attention and read what we have here for you. So you have a chart, and on this chart you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think there's 9, 8, 9 different literary periods and genres. They're listed on the side right here. What you have to do is read the information we have at the bottom of this chart, and you're going to fill it in for Native American time period. What is the time period? So the way you'll do that is you'll just scroll down. Native American, it's 2000 BC to 1620 AD. So this is the information that you will put in time period. Then you go back up and look again. 2 characteristics of the genre. You're going to find 2 major American events in the time period. And note, we have, although some authors were not alive during the height of the genre's time period, their work has characteristics of it, therefore placing them in that genre. So they don't necessarily have to be alive when an event happens to have been affected by that event. You're also going to list 2 famous authors during the time period and 1 notable writing that each one produced. And then you're going to find 2 images that represent the time period. So let's go back to the first example. We had Native American. We were finding the time period. Now you have to find 2 characteristics. So I go down and I'm going to look at it. It says Native Americans. They orally transmitted myths, legends, tales, and lyrics of Indian cultures. There was no written literature before the first Europeans arrived. Over 500 tribes maintained their own religions. They show a spiritual connection with nature. And then we have some authors listed here. Sherman Alexie, Chief Seattle, Leslie Marmon Cyclo, and Nayla Northson. So you have to come up with 2 characteristics. So just looking at this, what are some things we could say? We could say that they orally transmitted or orally shared their stories. That there is no written literature, that there were over 500 tribes. They all had their own religions. Most of their writing had spiritual connections with nature. So that's several things. You just need to list 2. Okay? That's in this section. You'll list 2. Now, 2 major American events in the time period. Notice we didn't tell you any. You're going to have to do a little bit of research. You're going to take this time period, the time, and you're going to search it on the internet, and you're going to find 2 events that happened, and you're going to write them in here. Then you have to find 2 famous authors and 1 notable writing for each of them. This is really important, guys. You know how I am about this. Names start with capital letters, so when you put the authors, their first name and their last name starts with a capital letter. If you're going to list a poem that the author wrote or a short story, you're going to put quotation marks around it. If you're going to list a book that the author wrote, you're going to put it in italics. In order to get full credit for this box, these directions must be followed. So down here, we gave you a listing of some of the authors. Here are just a few. So you can take 2 of these authors. That's fine. You can take any 2 of these. But again, you're going to have to go on the internet and find something that each of them wrote. Because the box says that you have to share 1 writing that each one produced. So if I pick Sherman Alexie, I'm going to have to put something down that he wrote. If I pick Chief Seattle, I need to pick something out that he wrote and put it in that box as well. The final box that you have is to find 2 images that represent this time period. So looking at this as a whole, looking at the characteristics of this time period, looking at the major events in American history that happened, what did these people write about? What are 2 images you can find online? So you're going online and you're finding something that is symbolic of this time period. And once you find those things, you're going to paste 1 into this box and 1 into this box. Then you're ready to move on to the next section, which is colonial. So I'm just going to come down here and read through these American literary periods and genres with you. So I read Native American. You have colonial, which is from 1607 to 1765. Early settlers experienced and celebrated the New World. Why did these people move here? religious freedom. Therefore, their literature reflects these struggles. Here are some of the authors of this time period. We have the Revolutionary and Early National from 1756 to 1800. During this time, the country was breaking from the binds of Europe or England. Therefore, the literature reflects independence, revolution, and a sense of belonging to the new America. Here are some of these authors of this time period. Romanticism. This is from 1800 to 1865. This is a time period when America is expanding. There's a new frontier that's being explored. People are optimistic. They're experimental. New people were immigrating to the country, bringing along new ideas. Romantics celebrate the imagination and limitless human mind. It's not about love and mushy-gushy stuff. It's about imagination and the limitless of the human mind. And here are some of the authors of this time period. Then we have Gothic Romanticism, also 1800 to 1865. So notice they happened during the same time. This relates to a style of fiction that emphasizes the grotesque, mysterious, and desolate, usually includes some sort of supernatural element. And here are some of the authors of this genre. We have realism from 1865 to 1914. The country is healing and rebuilding after the Civil War during this time. The Industrial Revolution is thriving. People begin to write about things real people can relate to. The novel becomes an important part of American literature. Here are some of the authors of this time period. Next, we have modernism from 1914 to 1945. Modernism follows World War I, where there was a burst in literary activity. The literature uses symbolism, feelings of alienation, and material pulled from past periods. The poetry is fragmented and or falling apart. It makes a rise in literary criticism and the lost generation. Here are some authors of this time period. Next, we have postmodernism from 1945 to the year 2000. People observed life as the media presents it rather than experiencing it directly. Popular culture is saturating people's lives. The post-World War II prosperity leads into the volatile times of the 1960s. Here are some of these authors. And finally, we have the contemporary. That's from 2000 to the present. Writers who live and write today. This is contemporary writing, and it combines the styles and techniques from all of the past periods, but now focuses on influences from other cultures. And here are some of the authors from this time period. So as you're completing this project, you're going to be going back and forth between this information at the bottom and your chart. In your chart, you should be able to find the time period, the characteristics, and the authors down below, but you are going to have to do your own research to find the two major events in America and the notable writing that each of the authors produced, as well as your two images.